Hi, my name is François Simon, a sales manager at Etiresoft. And to answer your question, today we have Simon, the masters of the monkeys. In today's webinar, we'll have a look at 10 tips and tricks in custom tools. There will be a Q&A session at the end to let you follow the presentation better. If you have any question during the presentation, you can use the chat box in the Go To panel and Simo will answer them for you. I expect this webinar to be around 25 minutes. The webinar is being recorded and will be online later today. Okay, let's get started. Using or else in combination. Under the property combination, you have an option called or else, which can be used to retrieve values from different properties. For instance, this can be used so that if property 1 has a value, then it will be used in the combination. On the other hand, if property 1 is empty and property 2 has a value defined, then it will be used in the combination. The last scenario, if both properties have a value, then it will only use the value from property 1, which is considered as a master. I'm now going to open a part in SolidWorks. So this part was designed without custom tools. So if I open the property pane, so we can see here that the file name is automatically pulled by the property called file name. So this is just using the SolidWorks formula to insert the file name as a property. Under that, I have two properties which are used by custom tools to generate a file name. I have the part number and the description. So if any of those properties are written in custom tools, then it will automatically overwrite the combination that I have here. So for instance, I'm going to select the custom tools project. As we can see, the part number was automatically generated and inserted into the file name combination. If for instance I select a description, so let's say that this is a plate. Now I have the new file name, and if I click OK, Custom Tools automatically offers you to make a save as operation and also copy the drawing accordingly. So now the part and the drawing have been renamed, so I can show you how the or else can be done in the option. So under the model combination, I have here the part name, and as you can see here, I have the two properties which are used by custom tools to generate a part name. Then I have the or else, and here I have the SolidWorks formula. If I want, I can also put another one. So you see here, if you click on the little arrow, you have the or else, and you could also use another value here. For instance, if I would like to have the project information. So in that case, it means that the part name and the description are the masters. If those are not free, then Custom Tool is going to look at the file name. If the file name is empty, then it would just check the project and so on. So this was the first tip. So let's go back to the PowerPoint. Manage property visibility. So earlier in Custom Tools, you were able to manage the group visibility of property, but in 2018, we also introduced the possibility to manage property visibility based on other property values. This allows you to only display properties that needs to be filled by the user. For instance, if you have a part that is a plate, then you can ask the engineer to fill specific properties for plate. If the part type is different, then the engineer will be asked to fill other properties. So let's go back to SolidWorks. So if I open here the property pane, and if I now select the height property, so we can see here that I have I have the material type. So the material type is used to basically allow the user to select which dimension needs to be linked. So for instance, if this is a plate, so we can see that the user has to define the length, the width, and the thickness. If I would have a different type, for instance, a U profile, then the user also needs to define the cut length. So this is how you can manage the visibility of property based on other custom property value. So we can check that out in the options. So here I have the properties. So here we can see that we have the long side. So for instance, I could take property here, for example, the project. I would just take a property. So this will be a property that needs to be visible, so it cannot be hidden. So here you can select the properties that will drive the visibility. For example, I can have the tooltip, and here I can define that if the value for tooltip is, for instance, dimension. So you can also use the star, and you can also use the star in the beginning. Then you can also use here, as we had earlier, the or else, so you can have multiple factor if you want to display different factors. So for example, here we could have a description or whatever. So those here values are values that are written, property values written for the tooltip. Okay, so we are going to continue with the dimensions, which is the third tip. So as most of you are probably aware, you can insert dimensions. So you can easily link dimensions from the 3D models to your properties. This is a very useful feature, especially if you use SolidWorks PDM and want to link dimension properties to the data card. You can also write bounding box dimensions as document properties. If a property has been linked to a dimension, then it will automatically update if the dimension is changed in the 3D model. It does not work the other way around. So for example, if you modify the property value for the dimension, it's not going to update the 3D model. So we can go back to SolidWorks. I'm now going to select here the insert dimension. So this will be a plate, and I'm going to just here to select the length. So here I can just need to click, and as you can see, the focus automatically switch to the next property. So I can have the width and then the thickness. So as you can see here, I also have a specific combination of properties for plate that is generated. Below that, we also have the custom property value for the 3D bounding box that was generated from custom tools. So those values were copied from the cut list item as model properties. So then I can also have them written to the document properties. So I can show you also how you can copy cut list item properties as model properties. So here we have the cut list properties. So I have the different bounding box information. So those are automatically written to the cut list item. And here you have the possibility to copy as model property. So if you copy as model properties, they will also be copied as we have seen earlier. Track property history. Custom tools can keep record of the different value changes that occur for a specific property. You can track the value changes for specific properties, and those changes will be written to the document properties. There are different use cases where this can be used. So for instance, if I open that part, and if I open the drawing, so we can see here that the value for customer and order date is empty because I have not defined any for the document property. So if I go here to the document property, if for example I select a customer, Audi, and we'll just keep the date that we have here, I will save the document. So we can also check the property of the document, and here we have like Audi and order date. Okay, now if I open the drawing, so we can see here that the customer and the order date was automatically inserted. Now I'm going to select a different customer and also a different date. So for instance, I'm going to take BMW, and I'm going just to select a different date. I click OK. I save the document, and if I return here to the document property, we can see here that now the customer is BMW and the date is the one that was selected. And for Audi that was selected in the first place, I now have customer underscore history underscore 1. So if I would add history, it would go like 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So if I now return to the drawing, we can see here that we have the BMW and the Audi. So for example, if I edit here the text in the window, I can have this type of formulas to configure my drawing and insert the history also in the drawing. The fifth one is to use formulas in your combination. This is not a well-known feature, but in the combination of properties, you are able to define formulas to perform calculation. For example, you could copy cut list item properties where you usually have a lot of numbers and insert those into formulas to calculate, for instance, prices, time estimation to cut the plates, and so on. So for instance, if I go back to that part, if I now select the use formulas, so we can see here that I have defined formulas to calculate the cut time in minutes and also in seconds. So the formula is a combination of the number of cuts that we need to do. So for instance, here we have like 5 cuts, so we have like 4 different holes, and then we also have the outside cut that we need to do. We have the thickness of the sheet metal plate. Then we have the inner cuts that corresponds to the total length cuts of those holes, and then we have the outer cut that we need to do. For instance, if I would have a different value here, I would just put 500. Then we can see here that the total cut time and in minutes and also in seconds automatically updates. Okay, I can click OK. I can show you how we can do the formula in custom tools. So if you open a combination, here we have the total cut time, and I'm going just to copy the value here and open it in Notepad so that it's easier to view. So in order to use the formula, you need to use those brackets here. So you need to start with the open bracket, and then you can just write the formula. So you can use a parenthesis. Here you have the properties. So first I just put the inner and outer together. I just multiply it by the thickness, and then I just add the number of cuts, which I multiply by 15, because the more cuts you have, also the more time it will take for the leather to change the position and drill the first hole. This is just an example of a type of calculation that we could do. So just remember that we need to start with the open arrow, and you need also here the closed one, and you can also use those parentheses if you need to make some inside calculation. And then here, this was the one where I calculate the time, so we can see we just have the total cut length divided by 60 to get it into minutes. Use case in your hierarchical lookup list. There are two different ways how you can use hierarchical lookup lists in custom tools. One possibility is to use one property for every level. The main benefit of that approach is that you can write specific property value per level. On the other hand, you have to jump between multiple properties, and it's not so user-friendly. The second approach is to use one property where you can navigate between the different levels. This is more user-friendly, but the value returned to the document property is not so useful, as you can see here with those red vertical lines. Values from the different levels are just returned to one single property. One solution is to use key values in your hierarchical lookup list. That way, you only use one property to navigate between the different levels, and then those properties associated with those keys are automatically filled. So if I go back to SolidWorks, open the properties. So here, first I'm going to show you the two different use cases where we can use the hierarchical lookup list. So for instance, here I have those three properties which are dependent from each other. So here I have the first level for the category. So for instance, I could select here a standard part. Then based on what I have selected in the first place, I can select a value here. So for instance, conveyor, and here I could just select a value. If I would have selected a different value from the second level or the first one, then the following property would have been cleared. So for instance, if I select a brace here, then we can see that the value here is cleared, and there are no property available for the third category because there are no value defined for that level. And then the other possibility is just to use hierarchical lookup list. So you see here I have exactly the same list, and I can just navigate and select the property value. So this, if I just click on OK now, I can just show you how those are returned to the document properties. So if I just open the properties, so here we have the one that was returned for the no keys here. And then we also have the one that were written here for the category. And this is what we would like to have, but with one single property where I can just navigate between the different levels. So if I go back to the properties, and now if I want to use a list with the keys, so here we can see that now I have the same property, the same lookup list hierarchical, and I can just navigate between the different properties. And then here I have 3 properties that will automatically retrieve the keys associated with those different values. So for example, if this part is to be used with the frame, then I just select the frame, and here the properties are automatically, the keys are automatically returned to the properties. So it's much easier for you to define those properties. I can show you how this can be done in the options. So if I go to the lookup list, so here if I just edit the hierarchical lookup list, we can see here that we just have the hierarchical lookup list that can be used to navigate. And then what I have done is just that I have used the different keys that we have here just to copy the different level. Also, one tip, if you want to rename the key, because by default it's always key 1, 2, and 3, you can just make a right click here and just rename the key as you want. So if I would have a 4th level, I could just rename it level 4. So once you have defined the keys, I'm just going to cancel. I will just go back here to the properties. So here I have a property that's just going to use a hierarchical combo, and I'm just going to select the hierarchical lookup list that I want to use. And here I have the different levels. So here you can use from the data function the get list key. Then you just need to select from which custom property you want to retrieve the key. So this is the property that was used with the hierarchical lookup list and have the keys defined. And then from here I can just define which key I want to associate with that property value. Okay, so the 7th one is drag and drop from the search. This is also a hidden feature from the search results, but you are able to drag and drop parts or assembly into your design. This can be used to really ease the design of your assemblies. So for instance, if I would like to make a part from that assembly, I could just make a small assembly. So I'm just going to insert that part. Then I can go to the search. So for instance, I could search for a part that is used in the project called custom tools. And here I could just select the part that I want to use in that assembly. Just select it and insert it. Also, if the part have different configuration, custom tools will also automatically ask you which part you want to use. I just click OK here, and the part is automatically inserted in my assembly. So I can just now save it. So here I will just call it assembly here, for instance. So this is just a small tool from the search, and also from the search results you're also able to access different features of custom tools. So even if no parts are open, you're able to access the print and convert, the export, the where used, and also some of the file operation. Save one folder up. So you can use a Windows command to save, for instance, the converted files in the folder above. Some companies use different folder structure for the SolidWorks files and their associated neutral file formats, such as PDF, DXF. This approach allows you to use different root folders for files used in the same project. So here we have the name of the command, it's just dot dot and backslash that you need to have. So for instance, if I go here, I can show you that. So here I have the tips and tricks. I have here the custom tools project that has been used, so the custom tools project, and here is where I have my SolidWorks files. And I have defined that when I run some file conversion, I want to create a folder above. So here I have the different drawings, but I want to create a folder called converted files under the custom tools project, and then under that I want to create specific folder, for instance for the PDF or the DXF files. So if I open the print and convert, select the batch operation, I'm just going to create a merge PDF. So I'm just running a very simple batch conversion rule here. So this will just create one PDF here that we have. So here we can see that we have the custom tools. The neutral files folder was automatically created. We can see here based on the timestamp. Here I have the PDF, and here the PDF that I have just converted. So this allows you to go one folder up and then create a folder structure on that. So I can show you here the option just to show you how this has been configured in the file conversion profile. So here I have the rule. So you see here I'm just using the drawing path. Then I have the dot backslash, so which will automatically force the saving to go one folder up, and then I just create here the folder structure under that. Number 9. Change the size of the preview image in Excel. The preview image of the 3D model is a nice feature, but it does not always come to the correct size, especially if some properties are added to the export profile. Sometimes the preview image is too small, or sometimes it's too big. It's actually pretty easy to resize the default size of the preview image. So let's go back to SolidWorks. I'm going to click here on Export. I'm going to save that assembly. So here I have a very pretty simple Excel report that I'm going to generate. So here I have the Excel report that was generated. So as we can see here, the preview image is quite small compared to, I cannot really see what part it's referring to. So what you need to remember is just remember the name of the column here, because this is what we need to modify in the Excel template. We have the column R, which we are going to change in the options. So now you need to open the options. Click on Export Profile, select the Excel report, and click on Edit. So from here, we are able to automatically download the template file. So I will just download it. So I can just replace this one. So it has now been downloaded, and I'm just going to open it. So here. So as we can see here, the row width for the column R is quite small. So I just need to make it a little bit bigger and save it here. So this will allow you to easily resize the size of the image. So once you have resized the size in the Excel file, you need to upload the template file back to the custom tools profile. So now it's now uploaded. I click on OK. I save the changes for the export profile, and I will close the option. So if I generate once again the export profile, so here custom tools just ask me to overwrite it, which I'm going to do. Now the Excel report has been generated, and as we can see here, now we have a bigger size for the preview image. So this is how you can resize the preview image inserted in the Excel report. The last one is to use the sheet size when configuring a print profile. So there are two different approaches to configure a print profile. The print profile settings can be defined based on the sheet format. Then you have to configure each of them, and there is also an easy approach, which is to use the print profile based on the sheet size. So from here you can define that if you have some A4, you just want to print them to that printer. So it's much easier to use the sheet size instead of the sheet format. So if I go back to SolidWorks, if I open the options, I will click here on the print properties. So here I have the print profile. So here is where we are going to define the profile printing settings. So if you click on new, so from here you have two different options. You can use the sheet format. So if you click here, you just need to select each of those sheet format and define specific printing settings. But if you want to make it a bit easier, you can just select here, for example, if you have a A4 landscape, and then just define to which printer size you want to print it. So it's much faster to define the print settings based on the sheet size rather than the sheet format. This is all I had to show you today. Please join our next webinar on the 17th of January, where we'll show you how to link SOLIDWORKS to external data source. This can be used, for instance, to run live search against your ERP to link and synchronize item information. I am open for questions when the recording is stopped, but first, I want to thank you all for attending this webinar. Also, on behalf of the Custom Tools team, I would like to wish you a Merry Christmas and a successful and Happy New Year.
We are in the life-saving business. We kill your routines before they kill you.